bet to see the Beekeeper in IMAX. I'm predicting shaky cam while Jason Statham fights, but a really satisfying conclusion to his rampage. Hello and welcome back to Movie Health Community, the internet's #1 source of health warnings at the movies. As always, please keep in mind that nothing produced by Movie Health Community is medical advice, nor has any of it been reviewed by medical professionals. Today we're talking about The Beekeeper, the third Jason Statham-led action movie in the last 6 months, about a man who keeps bees and gets involved in a lot of violence. Before we talk about whether this movie's any good, let's talk about if this movie's any safe. The answer is no! The Beekeeper is not safe for photosensitive audiences. The most common offender in The Beekeeper is police lights. These are used frequently. They are used in dark environments. These light up entire environments. These light up entire windows in the background. They are used a lot in this movie. And I know that this is not a conversation that we're ready to have as a society, but just because it's a strobe light we use in normal everyday life does not mean it is safe to put in the movie. There are a lot of rapid firing weapons in this movie. Again, some of those do happen in dark environments. The opening credits have some bright flashes of light, and this includes the fourth of the 4 production company logos at the beginning, just with sudden bright and unexpected flashes of light. For flashing lights, we are giving The Beekeeper a 10 out of 10. Extreme risk because of just how much of the runtime is covered with the police lights. In terms of motion, there's a little bit of shaking, not nearly as much shaking of the camera as in Jason Statham's last 2 movies. The more disorienting thing in this movie may be the rapid editing style that they use instead of shaking the cameras. For mental health warnings on this movie, near the beginning of the movie, somebody dies off screen by suicide, but we do see a graphic aftermath. There is some gore shown on screen, and if you are uncomfortable with a simulation of what it's like to be surrounded by bees buzzing right by your ear or right by the microphone, and the screen covered in bees, the first 10 minutes of this movie are probably going to be pretty disturbing for you. Going back a little bit, that whole conversation about the rapid editing style leads directly into, is this movie any good? Actually, it kind of is. The reason I bring up the editing style is because instead of shaking the cameras violently while Jason Statham is fighting, it's cutting multiple times a second to different angles to, I guess we're trying to hide the fact that Jason Statham can no longer fight the way he used to. And that's just something I'm not doing a good job coming to peace with, especially since I've started blogging and reviewing these movies. And in addition to talking about the health hazards. But yeah, I think all signs are pointing to Jason Statham can't fight anymore. If you've seen a trailer for this movie and you've seen the inciting incident that leads to this revenge quest, most of what you've seen comes from the first 20 or 25 minutes of the movie. And so I have to hand it to the marketing department that most of their trailer footage happens so early, and there's so much left to be surprising later on in the movie. But I think my favorite thing about this movie was the fact that I saw it in IMAX and I got to hear Jeremy Irons speak on these IMAX speakers. That was a beautiful sound. Some voices with the right speakers just hit right. Aside from Jason Statham having all his fight scenes cut into pieces and reassembled really messily, he still does just as good a job as ever leading this movie. Josh Hutcherson, this is definitely a better role for him in a supporting role of a bit of a D-bag than the lead role he had in Five Nights at Freddy's. This is a much better role for him. The exposition in this movie is handled really sloppily. Like, in scenes dealing with exposition and big shocking reveals, it feels like a first draft screenplay that never got looked over by someone who does polishing of screenplays as a profession. And with this one big reveal that happens about 2/3 of the way into the movie, the editing and the sound design around the initial reveal of it are so loud and sloppy that they actually have to reveal the same thing again in the very next scene and treat it as if it's the big reveal we're getting right now. And the way that this scene of exposition on this twist is written is just really sloppy. And I know I don't have very much experience in the film industry, but I do actually believe I could have rewritten the scene to expose these twists more smoothly. I am going to give The Beekeeper a C+. That's just because the revenge tale, heavily inspired by John Wick, but not nearly as good as John Wick, is pretty satisfying. Thank you so much to our readers on Tumblr and Facebook, and as always, an extra special thanks to our patrons over on our Patreon page, whose names are scrolling across the screen like credits right now. Be sure to like this video, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when we post new videos, and as always, stay safe at the movies.